For the longest time, when we thought about artificial intelligence, the image that came to mind was basically like a brain in a jar.
Oh, totally. We were just completely obsessed with the software side of things.
Right. It was all about, how many parameters does it have, or how smart is the algorithm.
Yeah, it really felt like this pure, frictionless digital race.
Exactly. But you look at the landscape today, and the reality has completely flipped. I mean, the brain in the jar is fine.
Yeah, the software's doing great.
But the problem is that the jar itself is running out of space, the liquid is drying up, and the power cord is literally melting.
It really is a completely different battlefield now.
Yeah.
I mean, we spent years tracking a capability war, right? Just assuming the smartest software would automatically win out.
Which makes sense in a digital world.
Right. But the rules of the game have changed almost overnight. The bottleneck isn't human ingenuity or, coding brilliance anymore. It is entirely physical.
Yeah.
It's copper wire. It's real estate. It's the literal physical generation of electricity.
And we are looking at a massive new Information Matters report today that proves exactly that. The AI capability war, at least as we knew it, is basically over.
Yeah.
We are now in a cutthroat physical supply crunch. So for you listening, our mission today is this. We've got this enormous report mapping out the AI foundation model landscape from May and June 2026, and we're pairing it with some breaking financial news that honestly reads like a tech thriller.
It really does.
We are going to cut through the PR hype, figure out who is actually winning, and understand why the physical world is suddenly choking the digital one. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, the best place to start is probably with the structure of the market itself. Because you look at the vendors analyzed in this report, the landscape is just violently fractured.
Fracture how?
So they evaluate 9 major AI vendors, but they make one thing very clear right out of the gate. This is not a 9-way race anymore.
Wow, really?
Yeah. The market has permanently separated into 2 distinct tiers. And that separation, it has nothing to do with who has the cleverest code. It is driven entirely by who can get their hands on physical infrastructure.
It's like a high-stakes poker game where the buy-in suddenly jumped from millions to $1 trillion. If you don't have $1 trillion compute roadmap, you're not even allowed at the main table.
That is the perfect way to put it. And the report spells out exactly who is sitting at that main table.
Right, the big four.
Exactly. OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, and Meta. They are operating at a structural scale that the other 5 vendors simply cannot touch.
I mean, the numbers here are just insane. We are talking about a combined run rate revenue approaching $100 billion.
Yeah.
And more importantly, over $1 trillion in committed forward compute spend through 2032.
That $1 trillion figure, that is the moat. You have to understand what forward compute spend actually means in the real world.
Break that down for us.
It means they aren't just, buying servers for tomorrow. They are pre-purchasing a decade's worth of data centers. They're securing land rights and locking down local energy grids years before the concrete is even poured.
Oh, wow. So they are basically buying the future.
Right. You simply cannot compete with a company that has bought the rights to a local power plant through the year 2032.
No, you definitely can't.
But within that top tier, the hierarchy has actually seen a massive twist. For years, OpenAI was the undisputed king of valuation.
Right. Everybody knows OpenAI.
Exactly. But that is no longer true. As of May 2026, Anthropic has leapfrogged OpenAI to become the most valuable pure-play AI lab in the world.
That part completely blew my mind. Anthropic raised $65 billion in late May.
Yeah, single raise.
That single raise bumped their post-money valuation to an astonishing $965 billion, pushing them past OpenAI's $852 billion valuation.
It's a staggering amount of money.
And it's not just like speculative monopoly money either. The actual revenue is backing it up. Anthropic is pulling in a $47 billion run rate.
Yeah.
And for you listening, run rate basically just means if you take what they made this month and assume they do that every month for a year, that's their trajectory.
Right. It's a projection. But here is the craziest statistic in that section. $2.5 billion of that annual recurring revenue is coming from just one single product.
Wait, just one?
Just one, Claude Code.
Oh, wow.
What's fascinating here is what that tells us about where the real money is being made in AI right now. The report models several different future scenarios for the industry. And Anthropic's dominance is absolute proof that the scenario they call rewire is the most profitable reality.
Okay, rewired.
Yeah, rewire is the scenario where enterprises are basically fundamentally restructuring their workflows around AI agents.
Wait, let's pause on that.
Yeah.
Because when most people hear AI, they still think of like a chatbot. You know,
Yeah.
you type a question, it gives you a recipe or a line of code.
Right.
But rewire means something entirely different, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's the shift from a tool to an employee. An agent is a system that takes multi-step actions on its own.
Got it.
Claude Code is the ultimate expression of that. It's not just helping a human programmer write a Python script. It is acting as a fully autonomous engineering team.
So it's basically doing the whole job.
Yeah, you give it a massive objective, and it goes into the code base, finds the bugs, writes the new features, tests them, and then deploys them all on its own.
That is the aha moment right there. So $2.5 billion of revenue is coming from a product that actually replaces the software engineering team.
Precisely.
Enterprises aren't buying software subscriptions anymore. They are effectively renting digital employees.
Exactly. But while Anthropic is out there printing money, renting out these digital employees, the actual cost of using these top-tier models has kind of hit a brick wall.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For a long time, the cost of developers was dropping every few months. Software wants to be free, right?
Right. Things usually get cheaper.
But now, frontier pricing has flatlined. It's basically converged at around $2.50 to $5 for input and $15 to $30 for output per million tokens.
And that's for the big ones, right?
Yeah, for the heavy hitters like GPT 5.5, Claude Opus 4.8, and Gemini 3 Pro.
Which brings us right back to the physical reality we started with. The software is getting smarter, but the physical infrastructure it runs on cannot get infinitely cheaper.
No, it can't.
You can only make a data center so efficient before you hit the hard baseline cost of the concrete, the silicon chips, and, the raw electricity required to keep the lights on.
Exactly.
And that constraint is creating a massive crisis. We know these top-tier companies are spending trillions on compute, but it's because physical compute supply is the absolute binding constraint of 2026.
It is the only thing that matters right now.
If you want to know why your company's custom AI tools are suddenly getting more expensive, or why that new startup feature you wanted is stuck on a wait list, this is why.
And the numbers coming out of Q1 2026 illustrate this perfectly.
Right.
Take Google Clouds, for example.
Okay.
They reported $20 billion in Q1 revenue. Their AI revenue alone grew by 800%.
800%.
Yeah. But the crucial metric is their backlog. Their backlog nearly doubled to $460 billion.
Oh my God. Let's unpack what a $460 billion backlog actually means. Because that isn't just a waiting list of people who signed up for a newsletter.
No, definitely not.
That represents signed, legally committed contracts from companies begging for computing power. And Google literally cannot provide it because the physical servers just do not exist yet.
Right. Sundar Pichai, Google's CEO, had to get on an earnings call and admit to investors that they are leaving money on the table because they just cannot build data centers fast enough.
Which is wild for a company like Google.
It is. They bumped their 2026 capital expenditure up to between $180 and $190 billion, just trying to pour concrete fast enough to catch up.
It is a staggering amount of money trapped in limbo by the limits of the physical world. And the friction caused by this shortage led to some major breaking news drama back in March 2026.
Oh, yeah. The squeeze got so tight that the tech titans actually started turning on each other.
Yes, the Google and Meta situation, this was wild.
It really was.
According to the Financial Times, Meta wanted to buy a massive amount of Gemini API capacity from Google to supplement their own internal infrastructure. And Google literally had to cut Meta off.
Yeah, they did.
They told Mark Zuckerberg, no, we don't have the room. It disrupted Meta's internal AI projects so badly that Meta had to tell its own human employees to ration their AI token usage.
Which is just crazy to think about.
Wait, hold on. Google couldn't provide enough compute for Meta. That is like the water company telling the electric company they're out of water. If these tech titans are rationing usage internally, what does that mean for the rest of the world?
Well, it sounds absurd, but it proves beyond a shadow of doubt that the constraint is physical. I mean, Meta has infinitely deep pockets. They have the cash to buy the compute. But the compute simply isn't there to be bought. If we look at the supplier side, NVIDIA's Q1 FY27 data center revenue hit $75.2 billion.
Wow.
NVIDIA is pumping out chips as fast as the foundries can manufacture them, but the hyperscalers, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, They cannot build the physical buildings, install the cooling systems, and route the municipal power grids quickly enough to plug those chips in.
Okay, so put yourself in Meta's shoes for a second.
Sure.
You have billions of dollars burning a hole in your pocket. You are in a life or death race to build the smartest AI, and Google just told you the server is full. You can't just stop building.
No, you definitely can't.
So you have to look for alternative solutions.
Right.
And that desperate search for hardware brings us to the rise of the Neoclouds.
Right. Neoclouds are specialized AI infrastructure providers. They are very different from traditional hyperscalers.
How so?
Well, a hyperscaler like Google Cloud or AWS offers everything, right? They give you web hosting, database management, email service, cybersecurity.
The whole package.
Exactly. Neoclouds basically do exactly one thing. They rent out raw AI computing power.
Yeah.
And they are booming right now because they solve today's capacity problems faster than hyperscalers can build new mega campuses.
To really understand the difference, think about renting office space. Hyperscalers are like renting a massive, fully furnished corporate office building.
Right.
You get the desks, the security guards in the lobby, the IT department, the cafeteria. It's incredibly complex to build.
Right.
Neoclouds are like renting an empty industrial warehouse that just happens to have a massive industrial-grade electrical outlet.
Oh.
They strip away all the software bloat, all the enterprise management tools, and just give you raw, unadulterated computing power.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
And if you are Meta and you already have your own software, you don't need the corporate cafeteria. You just need the giant electrical outlet.
Exactly. And because Neoclouds are just providing that raw power, they can move much faster. They buy up existing warehouses, retrofit the cooling, rack the NVIDIA chips, and just get them online. And Meta just hired a massive fleet of them to bypass Google. Meta just signed a jaw-dropping $27 billion 5-year deal with a Neocloud called NBIS.
$27 billion.
Yeah. Starting in early 2027, NBIS is going to provide $12 billion of dedicated capacity using NVIDIA's new Vera Rubin platforms, and Meta committed to purchase up to $15 billion more.
Wall Street absolutely loved that for Nebius. Their stock, NBIS, jumped to 14% on the news.
Naturally.
But Meta didn't stop there. They also expanded their commitment with another Neocloud, CoreWeave, by $21 billion through 2032. That is nearly $50 billion Meta is pouring into alternative warehouse providers just to keep their AI ambitions fueled.
It really highlights the sheer desperation we were talking about earlier. Morgan Stanley analysts released a note pointing out that these Neocloud deals are actually going to drag down Meta's earnings per share in 2027.
Really? Why is that?
Because renting outsourced, scarce compute comes at a massive premium. Building your own data centers always offers a better long-term return on investment.
Oh, that makes sense.
But Meta can't wait for a 15-year lease decision or, a new municipal power plant construction. They need the compute right now, even if it eats into their profit margins.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just the multi-billion-dollar giants cashing in on this empty warehouse model.
No.
Even the smaller players in the Neocloud space are exploding right now. Take a company called RunPod.
Yeah, RunPod.
They just hit a $1 billion valuation on a $100 million raise. That is a 10x jump in their valuation in under 2 years. They rent compute to over 1 million developers, focusing heavily on the open source community. And the wildest part, they reportedly refused a $500 million buyout offer.
Turning down $500 million when you are a 5-year-old startup is a massive statement of confidence.
It takes guts. Definitely.
It does. But it's important to understand how RunPod operates because they use an asset-light model.
What does that mean?
Unlike Nebius or CoreWeave, RunPod doesn't actually own all massive data centers. They essentially act as a highly efficient broker. They find latent GPU capacity around the world, rent it, and provide a frictionless software layer for developers to train and run models quickly.
So they are basically like the Airbnb of massive AI supercomputers.
Precisely. But that asset-light model also exposes the core risk in the Neocloud boom.
Right.
If the supply of physical GPUs finally catches up to demand in, say, 2028 or 2029, and Google finally clears that $460 billion backlog, the premium pricing power of these Neoclouds might vanish overnight.
Exactly. I mean, if the fully furnished corporate offices finally have vacancies, you don't need to overpay for the empty warehouse anymore.
Exactly.
So we've talked about the big four, and we've talked about the Neoclouds making billions off their desperation, but let's look at the other side of the coin. If you are a smaller player looking at this $27 billion buy-in, you have a choice. You either figure out how to build a model on a shoestring budget, or you find a way to build a protective fortress around your company.
And those really are the only two survival strategies left for the bottom tier. You have to adapt radically. You cannot fight OpenAI or Google on raw scale.
No, you'd be crushed.
Yeah. So you have to rely on extreme architectural cost cutting, or you have to lean heavily into geopolitics and regulations to build that fortress.
Let's look at the extreme cost-cutting approach first. This brings us to DeepSeek, a Chinese-origin AI lab.
Right.
They're dominating the low-cost tier right now. Their V3.2 model is priced at an astonishing 28 cents for input and 42 cents for output per million tokens.
Which is just wild.
It is. Remember, the frontier models were charging up to $30. DeepSeek is 2 orders of magnitude cheaper. How are they functionally doing that?
Well, DeepSeek is the ultimate winner in what the Information Matters report calls the plateau scenario, a future where AI output becomes a universally cheap commodity. They achieve this massive price drop through highly efficient architectures, specifically something called DeepSeek sparse attention.
Okay, unpack sparse attention for us. What does that actually mean under the hood?
Sure. So traditional AI models use dense attention. That means when the AI reads a document, it looks at every single word simultaneously and tries to calculate how every word relates to every other word.
Wow, okay.
It is incredibly thorough, but it burns massive amounts of compute. Sparse attention trains the model to only look at the most relevant words.
Oh, I see.
Think of it like reading a textbook. Dense attention is reading every single syllable on the page. Sparse attention is skimming the headings and bold text to get the core concept in a fraction of the time.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it requires vastly less computing power, which drives their costs into the floor.
But they aren't taking over the world despite being so cheap, because their weakness isn't technical, it's geopolitical. They are facing massive regulatory bans, globally state-level bans in the US, heavy restrictions in the EU and South Korea. Their physical and market access is severely bounded by actual physical borders.
Which perfectly transitions into how some companies are using those exact borders to their advantage.
Right.
In Europe, we are seeing a major consolidation based entirely on this concept. Cohere, which is a Canadian AI company focused on the enterprise sector, is acquiring a German AI lab called Aleph Alpha for $20 billion.
And a massive Series E, too, right?
Yes, alongside a $600 million Schwartz Series E funding round. The goal is to create a transatlantic sovereign AI champion.
Wait, sovereign AI champion. Is it possible that these intense regulations and geopolitical borders are actually saving the smaller European companies? Like, are they creating protective walled gardens where the American tech giants can't crush them?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the answer is absolutely yes. The report's framework calls this the borders scenario. It's a future where regulatory divergence basically fragments the global market into distinct sovereign regimes.
Right.
The Cohere and Aleph Alpha merger is a brilliant survival tactic. Aleph Alpha brings something to the table that Google and OpenAI simply do not have: Bundeswehr military clearance and deep localized integration with German sovereign cloud platforms.
Oh, wow. So they secure massive government and defense contracts that American companies are just legally locked out of, no matter how good their software is.
Exactly.
And you can see this geopolitical fraction getting more intense by the day. Look at the intersection of trade and technology. Recently, Donald Trump threatened a 100% tariff on any European country that imposes a digital services tax on U.S. tech companies.
Right.
And just to be clear for you listening, we're not endorsing any political viewpoints here, just reporting what the sources show. But France has been pushing for these taxes on the revenue of big tech, and this tariff threat is a direct response to that.
It's really fascinating to see how deeply embedded this is in politics now. Looking at the data in the sources, international trade policy and AI infrastructure are inextricably linked.
They really are.
The regulatory environment is no longer just a backdrop. It is an active variable determining which AI companies survive and which ones starve.
Yeah.
And AI is bleeding into the actual political messaging itself, too. Another example from the reporting, Trump recently posted an AI-generated image on social media depicting himself as Atlas carrying the world.
Oh, right. Shortly after the U.S. strikes in Iran.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Again, impartially speaking, it just goes to show that AI generation is deeply embedded in the daily machinery of global statecraft.
Yeah, that fragmentation of the market has massive implications for the Big Four, too. The report points out that Google DeepMind is the only company that scores incredibly well across all future scenarios.
Right, they have a robustness score of 8.03 out of 10.
Yeah, they are insulated because they have deep enterprise integration, their own proprietary hardware with their tensor processing units, and a globally audited cloud infrastructure.
Conversely, Meta, despite all their billions, suffers heavily in that borders scenario
Why is that?
because they rely on open source, or more accurately, open weight models. But the license for their Llama 4 model explicitly excludes users in the European Union.
All right.
And Meta refused to sign the EU's General-Purpose AI Code of Practice. So while Meta thrives in a world of cheap, accessible AI, they are deeply vulnerable to a world defined by strict regulatory borders.
Which brings us to the ultimate wild card in this entire landscape, Elon Musk's XAI.
Oh, yes.
They recently merged into SpaceX as a wholly owned subsidiary in an all-stock deal valuing XAI at $250 billion within the larger $1.25 trillion SpaceX entity.
And this circles us right back to the physical limits of the universe that we started with. XAI has taken the absolute extreme approach to the compute crunch.
How so?
If the bottleneck is physical hardware, their strategy is essentially the biggest physical cluster wins. They're currently building Colossus 2, targeting an unbelievable 555,000 GPUs in a single training cluster.
That is insane.
They aren't trying to be the most efficient with things like sparse attention. They're trying to apply the maximum amount of brute physical force to the problem.
Wait, hold on. 555,000 GPUs. Where are they even getting the power for that? You can't just plug 500,000 massive graphics cards into the Memphis City grid without blacking out the entire state of Tennessee.
You can't. And that is exactly where the physical world is pushing back. They are currently facing major environmental lawsuits from groups like the NAACP and Earth Justice.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because to get the power they needed, they allegedly installed 46 unpermitted natural gas turbines right there in Memphis just to power this massive supercomputer.
Wow.
They need so much electricity that they are bypassing the standard municipal power grid and dropping jet engine-sized gas turbines right next to their data centers.
That is the perfect encapsulation of this exact moment in time. We have reached a point where the digital frontier of human knowledge is literally constrained by the local permitting process for burning natural gas in Tennessee.
It is wild.
The algorithms are ready to scale to the moon, but the copper wire, the concrete foundation, and the carbon emissions are standing in the way.
Yep.
So what does this all mean? We started by talking about the massive valuation flip of Anthropic and OpenAI, which proved that autonomous agents, digital employees, are the future of the enterprise.
Right.
We traced the severe physical compute shortage that forced Google to literally cut off Meta, spunging a desperate $50 billion spending spree on Neocloud empty warehouse providers like NBIS.
Yeah.
And we looked at how smaller players are surviving by either skimming the textbook to drive costs into the floor like DeepSeek, or building sovereign walled gardens with military clearance like the Cohere LF Alpha merger.
And the overarching lesson for you as you navigate this rapidly changing space is to look past the software benchmarks. Critical thinking is absolutely essential when dealing with AI hype right now.
Absolutely.
When a company announces a shiny new model, the question you should be asking isn't just how smart is the algorithm. You should be asking, where is the physical data center? Who is manufacturing the chips, and how are they legally paying the power bill?
Exactly.
Because the bottleneck is no longer the algorithm. The algorithm is solved. The bottleneck is the infrastructure.
We've spent decades imagining AI as this ethereal, weightless thing, a brain in a jar.
Yeah.
But the digital expansion of artificial intelligence is now entirely dependent on the heavy, messy, physical world.
It really is.
We've got massive tech giants rationing their own usage and companies being sued over unpermitted gas turbines just to keep their massive servers from shutting down.
Yeah.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. If the ultimate limit to artificial intelligence isn't human ingenuity, but the physical constraints of copper, water, and electricity, what happens when the physical world simply says, no more? Are we approaching a hard physical limit to artificial intelligence? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you.